he's gonna just notify, yeah.
It's like Hollywood Squares that people keep moving around into different boxes.
Make sure you say we're on record at what time.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We're live.
Okay, it's 3:30. We're coming out of executive sessions in accordance with section 30-4070A2, the Freedom of Information Act, to receive legal advice about a potential claim related to a violation of the emergency ordinance 2020-02. No actions were taken during the executive session. All right, back to number 4. Is there anything that we want to do for the rentals? Which is ordinance 2020-02. Or do we want to wait?
Say stay the course and meet next Monday. It's not a motion.
See what the governor has to say.
Okay, so I hear no motions. Okay, how about any other motions? As for the violation of emergency ordinance 2020-02. There are several options. The last one of which is to let the courts do their thing before we do anything.
Mayor, I don't think we need any action taken.
Discussion.
Okay. Nothing else is on our agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, or are we going to schedule the meeting for next Monday at the same time?
I have one comment, Mayor.
Yes.
I don't know if council wants to consider any restrictions for the use of the beach for those that are on the island. That's also part of emergency ordinance 2020-02 related. It's currently not there, but it could be included.
On that, we still know what the governor is going to come out with this afternoon, in the next 15 minutes. So if there's any changes that need to be made, I think we just follow what.
Yes, we can certainly meet before next Monday
Yeah.
if something
Yeah.
comes up.
That's the answer. Yeah.
Wait, if we do that, then we are potentially opening back up, if the governor allows us, tomorrow with no restrictions, and then talking about adding on restrictions.
We can have another meeting. We can call for another meeting.
Yeah, because our checkpoints are still stay in place through the
Yeah.
30th.
That's correct.
To clarify, that would be if the governor removes, as expected, the public access pass decree that you can't use them. If that's removed, we can allow people legally here on the island to use those access pass.
Correct. However, I think our city administrator was suggesting that even for people who would be able to use the access paths, that we enact some restrictions about having people be in motion. And I would say if we're going to do that, it would be best to go ahead and do it tomorrow when they open up. If that's going to be followed by everybody, including our residents, rather than backtracking in a week. So I think if we're going to have that discussion, we might as well have the discussion now. And if I need to, I'll make a motion.
Well, if you would make a motion then, based on the governor's decision this afternoon.
Right.
We don't know what the governor's decision is yet.
Can I
Based
interject?
on the governor's decision.
I think the fact of the matter is right now people are allowed on the beach, and Councilmember
Right.
Smith is merely making the point that we could right now say if you're on the beach you need to be in motion, and that would hold true regardless of what the governor says.
Good, yeah, good point. Thank you, Councilmember Moy. We could go ahead and enact guidelines that ask for people to stay in motion unless they are disabled or elderly, and that they restrict groups, which I'm not
have
sure
that.
where we are with that. in terms of what we're asking people in terms of groups and numbers. Desiree, could you?
I'll make a
Is there a
motion.
motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that for that the beach is used for exercise only, including walking, running, dog walking, biking, surfing, and other recreational activities consistent with social distancing, and that sunbathing, loitering without moving in groups of more than 3 people will be prohibited.
That's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay,
Effective when?
Effective as of April 21st.
Why don't we say effective in conjunction with the governor's restriction lift or something like that, so it's at least consistent.
Sure.
I would like to make an amendment to that to allow.
Well,
Can
do we have a second?
Yeah, Mr. Pounds did, Councilmember Pounds did.
Okay. Susan, what is your amendment?
My amendment would be to allow for that restriction not to apply. Oh, that's not good phrasing. To, well, not include people who are disabled, elderly, or have serious health conditions, that they be allowed to sit on the beach.
How elderly?
Yeah, it's effective.
Good point. Let's just keep it to people who are disabled or have serious health conditions.
With maybe a placard?
To include people who have a placard.
So Susan, back to serious health conditions. It's non-verifiable, I think, to the mayor's point. Right now, we allow access with golf carts on the beach for people with a placard. Is that the
Okay.
suggestion, or is it up to each individual to tell the enforcement officer whether they have serious health issues?
I guess I'd like to hear from the chief about that.
Is there a second?
No, not yet.
I'll second it for a good discussion.
Chief, could you answer in terms of what makes sense from a enforceability standpoint?
Sure. I think if we stuck with the same requirements that we have right now, where we offer specialized permits or specialized permission for people with the placard to access the beach, I think it's easily to identify those individuals who are already coming onto the beach, and they would already have the placards with them that would indicate that they have a need to maybe be stationary for a period of time.
Oh,
Chief, I'd like to ask a question while you're on the spot already.
Yes, sir.
Little intro music for my question. Chief, how do you feel about does this, to me, on the face of this seems like a relatively enforceable ordinance for your team, but I want to ask you that question because I'm not the one that has to enforce it. So what's your reaction to this, and are there any recommendations that you'd have in ways that we can improve the language so that it's less gray, to your point earlier?
So I think it's pretty specific as far as, unless you, a placard that states that you have a need to be stationary, that you, same placard you would get for your DMV. It's pretty simple. If you're not qualified for that, you need to be moving and not just stationary on the beach. That's about as black and white as I think we could make that ordinance. It is enforceable. It is something that our officers are going to be able to do. The only thing I would say is that as the numbers grow of people being on the beach, that would take additional personnel a longer period of time to be out there. With them moving, it doesn't take as long because we can still move through. I would assume we're still requiring the social distancing, no more than 3 individuals that are not family in the area and together, but they're still moving. So I just want to clarify that is part of it, the social distancing.
It wasn't part of the original motion, but it could certainly be included as part of the regulations for the beach.
I will make an amendment that we include
Well-
social.
We already have an amendment.
Yeah, I will change can I change the wording of my amendment to fit with what we've been discussing in terms of allowing um, people with disabilities to have proof available through a placard that they be, what's the word?
Allowed to be stationary.
Stationary,
Allowed to be stationary.
and I
And I
think the mayor
second it.
had seconded.
Okay, any discussion on those who have disabilities with a placard for their golf carts to be on the beach, to be stationary? This is an amendment to the motion. Hearing no discussion. Yes, ma'am?
Call vote.
Okay, yes, ma'am, please.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted. You're unmuted now.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Towns,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan.
Aye.
Mayor Carroll,
Aye,
all in favor of the amendment?
unanimous. Okay, now that was for the amendment. Now for the original motion
As amended.
as amended. Would you read it back to us so we have it?
Well, Councilmember Moy had all of the, the groups in there and the exercises that he was allowing, but it's basically allowing the beach to be used for exercise only. And then he's got all the inclusions in front of him.
Okay,
To be
So
effective.
maybe the question is, do we need an amendment on social distancing per the chief's comment?
The motion included groups of no more than three people.
Okay.
Or-
And it was
Perfect.
effective in conjunction with the governor's order today.
Correct.
for the timing.
Just to
Okay.
clarify for the record, could we have the motion restated
Mhm.
again, Councilmember Moy?
Sure. That the beach is open for exercise only, permitted exercise to include running, walking, dog walking, biking, surfing, and other recreational activities consistent with social distancing. Sunbathing, loitering without moving, and groups of more than 3 people will be prohibited.
Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion?
I have discussion on it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure why we're limiting the activities on the beach right now and when we don't foresee, I mean, we don't really have a problem. We didn't necessarily have a problem going into it prior to the governor shutting down the beach accesses. So I don't understand. I mean, if you have to keep moving, but if somebody wants to stop and do a push-up, now it's illegal. So I don't understand what the reasoning for restricting, I mean, making people to be motion at all times based on the current population. I can understand it when we go through later and start allowing
Others.
others to come onto the island and start utilizing the beaches and where there's more of a crowd, then yes, and to maintain motion. But we didn't necessarily have a problem prior going into this. I don't understand why we're going to institute it now without having any evidence that it's an issue.
Mr. Mayor.
Great point. Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
I think there's a very intentional design behind doing this. I would agree. It's probably in large part not necessary if we intended on maintaining the checkpoint for the duration of this pandemic. But the fact of the matter is, we want to open up the checkpoint as soon as possible. We want to welcome our neighbors back onto the island, and in thinking about the incremental approaches that we want to take, I think our public safety needs time to kind of get adjusted to what does it look like to enforce this. And we're kind of giving them a learning period and giving our residents a learning period. And to Councilmember Smith's point, to go from this policy and then roll back and change policies again for our residents in 2 weeks, it presents a confusing message. And what we want to do as much as possible, I think at this time is put out something there that's consistent, that we're trying to create continuity of policy. And so having the foresight and knowing we know we're going to have to do this to control crowds in the future, I think it makes a lot of sense to do it now.
Good point.
But in my last statement, but we're not lifting the restrictions as of right now. So I mean, it's, what I understand is at that point, when restrictions are lifted, then the city can go through and institute, okay, we expect to see more people on the beach. At that time, instead of congregating and having large groups of people accumulate in certain areas, that we have to keep them moving. I think it's just a little bit, it's an overreach right now for something that's not a problem.
We call for a vote?
Well, if you're gonna call
Okay,
the question, you have to have a vote on calling the question.
on the question. All right, all those in favor of this motion
call.
where everybody,
Roll call.
Right,
Yeah.
someone has to make a motion to call the question. Someone has to second that. And
Call
then
the question. Make a motion to call the question.
Okay,
Second.
I'm sorry,
All
Mr.
right.
Councilmember Bell, you second that?
Yes. they
Okay.
did.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll call roll for, we're calling for, this is the vote to call the question. Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Buchanan,
All right,
Mayor Carroll,
aye,
unanimous. The question's been called. So now this is a vote on the amended motion to restrict movements to keep people in motion, as stated by Councilmember Moy about 4 minutes ago. Councilmember Buchanan,
nay.
Councilmember Moy,
Aye.
Councilmember Pounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Streetman,
Aye.
Councilmember Ward,
Nay.
Councilmember Bell,
Aye.
Councilmember Popson,
Aye.
Mayor Carroll.
nay.
Motion passes 6-3.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there nothing else on item 4? Do I hear a motion? to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
we talked about moving the next meeting to next Monday.
that's correct.
That is the 27th, and that's when the emergency order of the governor expires. Since he might be giving us new news, should we possibly meet on Tuesday, the 28th?
Well, we may have new day, right?
I'm good any day.
How
I'd
about
like to-
Tuesday at 1 o'clock?
I'd like to request that we move this to later. I'm trying to keep a job in this economic climate, and it's not hard when it's challenging when I take 3 hours out, and I don't want to stifle the discussion. So I'd prefer that we move this to later in the day, personally.
I mean, there's already on the calendar, the 28th is our originally scheduled meeting at 6 PM. Could we just do it then on the 28th?
That works for me.
Unless need arises, right, Mayor?
Okay, on the 28th at 5 o'clock?
6.
6.
Six. All right. We don't need a motion for that.
Yep.
Okay, now back to the motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Off
you.
record at 3:49.
Yep, 3:49.
Woohoo.